alive, it's alive, it's alive.
Do it live. We'll do it live. Do it live. Yeah, we'll do it live.
And welcome everybody to the Between Two Wheels podcast. Hey, the Tour de France, it enters its second half of the tour. Yeah, we're about halfway through, a little bit more than that. And the riders prepare for the mountains. So the sprinters take over. Crazy sprinters, as Roglic calls them. Today, we're going to give some reactions and some results from stage 11. Team GC, it's back in its normal place. And where is that? It's with an awful team. We'll talk about that. Sagan, he goes full SoCal sprinter mode. Or did he just try to avoid an action selfie? Some things that make you go, the ride of the week or maybe the ride of the day. And Nilsen Palace, he gets some good press, but evidently he can't dance. It is Wednesday, September 9, 2020, and this is a Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 194. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Once again, we're live on Facebook because YouTube sucks, and they're giving us some problems. But until that gets resolved, what we're not going to do is show clips of the race. If you want to know some of the problems and issues we had, check back on last episode 193, and we talked a little bit about Flowbike's legal action against this jerks there. However, what we do have is, and probably I should put notice of when we're going to go live, is just, as soon as we can from the stage, and we'll do some quick updates. Nilsen Palace, he is the first tribally recognized Native American to race the Tour de France. There's a great article about him and his family on Velo.news. Look, if you follow he or his sister Shayna Palace, she's a professional that rides for 2020. She's also girlfriend. Her boyfriend is Cleveland Browns, and he is evidently part Indian as well, Native American. But if you follow her, you'll know that the family is Native American, and you don't really know much about that from Palace. Nilsen, at least, he doesn't really do much about it. But there was a great article. I just thought I'd get Jack Palace, Nilsen's dad. He's half Oneida, the people of the Upright Stone, and one of the 5 Iroquois Nation tribes. Oneida originally inhabited what is now central New York, but it's now prominent in 2 locations in Ontario, Canada, and on the Oneida Nation near Green Bay, so Wisconsin. There's a reservation there. I guess their family comes from. Family doesn't have strong. This is what one point I saw in there. The family doesn't have strong dancing skills of the family patriarch either. That's an interesting point. Jonathan Vaughters didn't know that this was the case. So he's, I guess, the first recognized Native American to. And there's a good. It's really good little story. Some history about the family. How they don't necessarily flaunt this, but they definitely embrace it, and it's pretty cool. Not only is his dad part Native American, but I believe his mom as well. And it also talks about a little bit of their family history as far as athletics goes. Pretty impressive. And just thought I'd throw that out. It's on Velo.news. Nice article about Nilsen, who went down in a wreck yesterday, but he appears to be okay. Also, it sounded like maybe he's the one that took Wood's spot. We'll talk about that in our things and make you go, because it looked like Nilsen kind of got the late notice that he was coming to the Tour de France. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, stage 11, Wednesday. It's from Châtillon-Plonge to Poitiers, 167 kilometers, a little climb in there, pretty much flat. I saw that they did have a Cap 4 climb. Conefoy is the leader, the king of the mountains. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I think that and I know Lance Armstrong really has a problem with that, and I do too, in a sense, where you have a climber or non-climber getting the jersey, and in a sense, he's the one that's always getting dropped early. So it's kind of more of a most aggressive jersey, and that's that way. There's all kinds of things you can maybe do about that, which would be, GPS, maybe you time him up the climbs and the ones, or Lance actually said, he's not full of bad ideas. He's got a few good ones. He said, how about you just give points to, like the Cat 1 and the HC climbs? I agree. That'd be a good. Anyway, early on, Ledenois, a French FDJ rider, took off in the break. He was up the road for a pretty innocuous stage. Otherwise, a little bit of focus on Gregor Molberger dangling off the back. He's wearing a jacket. And he was really having troubles. Looked like he was sick. He finally abandoned about 38K to go. There was a crash for Astana around the 20 kilometers. Looked pretty bad. I'm not sure. Izaguri, I don't know if he ended up getting back in and finishing that off. And then the team's all lined up for the sprint. So inside 5K, yeah, Bob Jungles, the Jungle Bob and Asgreen kind of going after Polstelberger of Bora. Those two are on DeQuoin Quickstep. And, they're supposed to be doing a lead out. So what you end up having is from about 5 to 2K, those guys are kind of pushing on about 6-7 second lead. And you're having sprint teams trying to come and actually catch them up, which was CCC was up there, a little bit of Trek. I think there was another team up there also joining in. NTT was also doing some work. Cofidis and Lotto, Cofidis for Viviani, who we've seen nothing of, and Lotto obviously for Caleb Ewing. And it was a little bit it's not such a necessarily a bad strategy. You got two of your lead out guys actually going up the road, so you're forcing other teams to do the lead, and it's similar to doing a lead out in the first place. The problem you have though is setting up your rider and making sure that he's always in position. So now he's got to do a little bit more work to make sure he is sitting in the right spot. Now Sam Bennett won yesterday. He's obviously a guy that's a favorite for this, and there's a little bit of a climb coming into that as well. So slight gradient, about 4%. They said they're caught at 2K. NTT takes over. You got Lotto, Trek, DeQuoin Quickstep are not now helping Bennett because they're out of the mix. And CCC goes kind of to the front, and 1.5 Lotto is in the front, and you've got Caleb Ewing second wheel. You're like, ooh, he's up there a little bit quick. But out of the midst, you then have Wout van Aert. He takes a kick around 250 to go. And he is, we've talked about this before, but it's very important in this sprint. He is one of the straightest, narrow, straight line sprinters you've had in the Tour. You saw him winning at Milan San Remo. Very straight, upright sprint, not like Groenewegen, his teammate, or some of these other guys. Caleb Ewing, he tends to swerve a little bit. We know about Sagan, Cavendish, those guys. Anyway, he takes off maybe a little bit too far out, but 250 to go. Wout's taking the lead. Then you have Bennett, an NTT rider was kind of fading off on the left. South African, who has the South African jersey? Maybe it was, not sure. But anyway, those guys are fading, and you're watching now Caleb sitting behind Bennett, waiting, and you're about 100 meters in to go, and all of a sudden Caleb bursts around, takes a hard left, comes shooting through past Bennett and does a massive bike throw. We got a photo finish we'll show you here, bike throw at the line. And with that, he ends up getting the win. Now, what you end up seeing on the other side, though, was Wout van Aert. He's somewhat up against the barriers. And on his right, Sagan decides he's going to push his way through, kind of bumps, I don't know if it's Cockard or one of those guys, and then goes up the barrier. And as he's going up the barrier, there's not a lot of room. So he decides to make room, and he gives a good hard push to Wout on his left now, creates the room. Wout keeps sprinting. Sagan throws his bike at the line. He had it all across the front. And maybe we'll show you that. Let's go here. All right, so you can see the photo finish. Photo finish, you have Caleb Ewing on the far, if you're looking, it's on the far left of the road, middle of the road. Caleb Ewing, next to him is Sam Bennett. But over on the right is actually, far right is Sagan. He actually gets the sprint throw there for second place. And Wout does a little bit of a throw, but not much of one. And so you get one, first was Caleb, second was Sagan, third was Bennett, and then Wout, all within like a half wheel. Pretty impressive. And well, so then there's problems because you have Sagan, who took a little bit of an alternate route and pushed in on Wout van Aert. Wout, I think, gave him the finger afterwards. You also saw some good, Caleb gives a little fist pump to, and it's initiated by Sam Bennett. So they seem to be pretty good across the line. Wout, he had a few choice words for Sagan, and we're going to talk about some of that as well. This is also Sagan. Then did he get, basically take a look at this. So here's a picture of Sagan leaning into Wout. Wout's very straight upright, and that's just how he sprints. He doesn't move his bike around, but there's a circle around there, and you can see Sagan. There's someone with a selfie stick and a phone out there. Now, the barriers come out. I don't know if the selfie stick was any further out than the actual barriers itself, and I believe that's probably something that Sagan saw, and then he's like, yeah, I avoid selfie. I know that's how he talks. That's my interpretation of how he talks. So they ended up relegating him to last place on the stage on the day of those that came in. What we're going to take a look, though, is some of the quotes and what we had here. So this is Wout on Sagan. He goes, I think it's not done right to do that like that, actually. Wout told reporters afterwards, in my opinion, I sprinted in a completely straight line. I started complete on the right on the barriers, and he just tried to create space for himself and for me. He's not allowed to do that. I think it's already dangerous enough. I was really surprised and shocked at the moment. It felt like something I was making a maximum effort, so I was really scared. Yeah, he's one that backed away. I think I was on stage 1 when it got a little wet and dangerous in there, and he's like, I'm just not for that. I don't know if that has anything to do with the barrier that he doesn't mind mixing it up with these guys, but he's not a Caleb Ewing, he's not a Sagan, doesn't, throw his bike around. He just goes very straight. You saw that, like I said, with Milan San Remo. And in this one too, he holds it. There's a few feet on his right-hand side to the barrier, but he holds a very, very straight line all the way to the finish. Commend him for that. He should be commended. And rightly so. He said he was a little upset, gave a gesture. He flipped off Sagan. Maybe he'll be on the list of penalties today, or as far as fines. And then he went to talk to Sagan when he cooled down a little bit, and he said all Sagan he got from him was just more cursing and bad language. So there wasn't any conversation to be had. I don't know why Sagan would be upset with him. Once again, it's like you pulling out in front of someone in traffic, and then you're going to complain about them when it was on you. This is nothing to do with Wout, other than Wout gave him the finger at the end. Why would you be upset with Wout? Maybe because Wout, I don't know if his team filed a complaint. And look, hit him enough. He was slowing down pedaling wise, but he was still pedaling. I'm sure it didn't help him. He had to deviate off his line. And there was a bike throw. So maybe it was enough to get him. I think Wout's biggest problem in this sprint was he started too far back, and you had Caleb Ewing, the pocket rocket, just coming through. All right. Now you get this all time Tour of California. Phil Liggett, Paul Sherwin, God rest his soul, RIP on him. Bob Roll, all these, they just ooze in awe over Sagan. And what they like to say about him is his bike handling skills are just, the best. So someone actually poses out to Wout about Sagan's bike handling skills, and what he thinks about that. And this is what he said. He goes, he was dismissive of suggestions that Sagan's bike handling skills are such that he perhaps believes he can go through spaces in the peloton that aren't there. Quote, that's a weird way of thinking. There wasn't a gap, Van Aert said. And if you use your elbows to create one, that's completely against the rules. It's not reasonable, and it's not done. So he's correct on that. And let's go to some finish line quotes. Look, I had said previously, I don't think Sagan, Sagan, I think, is going to win the green jersey, but I don't believe he's going to win a stage in doing so. I also said you're going to have Caleb Ewan at least with 2 wins here by the time you get to the next rest day. He's got that. Caleb Ewing, let's see what he said here. It was very, very hectic. I was really close. Second to the Sagan. I was really close to the front and the 3, and then 1 kilometer to go, I was more forward than I wanted to be, especially with the headwind finish. I dropped back into the bunch, but there was it was quite crazy. I knew from the first stage that I'd won, that I'd stay calm and wait for the right time, the gap to open at the end. I had a real desire to win today after yesterday. I was quite disappointed with that sprint. I'm happy to repay my teammates for the win. Quick thought here. Caleb Ewing, he doesn't always, he'll win. He'll get like 2nd or 3rd, or he's 10th, 15th. You're like, he was up there in the position. What happened? And I think today is a prime example kind of where he's at with his thinking on his sprinting. He waits for that opening and then blows and just explodes into the hole and takes it. You saw that with his first win, which stage was that, 3 or 4, where he just weaved through people and exploded out on that tailwind or the headwind sprint. And today was a similar one. I'm watching it and I'm like, he's up there and he's on Bennett's wheel, and all of a sudden, boom, he comes around. Well, you see that quite often with him. He's waiting for the hole to open or his right spot, and he doesn't lead from the front. He doesn't. Sometimes he does, but most likely he does not. And sometimes when you're watching him, the hole just never opens and he just sits up. So he's strategic about that. And it's pretty interesting because, some guys like Sagan's going to sprint full gas the whole time. He gets a lot of top 5s, almost like just an easy thing for him to do. Where in the same respect, Caleb's getting 1, 2, 3, or he's getting 8, 10, 12, something along the lines. I really didn't know who won. I just saluted in case. I did a big throw, and you're basically looking down at the ground. So if you don't know if you won or not, sometimes you can feel it, and I felt quite close. I'm super happy with 2-stage win. One takes the pressure off, and after another one, the second one, now I just wanted another, especially in Paris. I hope to get through the mountains all right and have another sprint in Paris. Sam Bennett, he said, I don't really know what happened. It was so hectic, but the team did a fantastic job all day looking after me. Well, that's right, but I think they kind of deserted you with a little bit of a move there at the end. Like I said previously, it was kind of like a lead out, but the problem they do with that is you're the best lead out team. You don't need to do that. And then you put your rider in a position where he might not, he has to go through a little bit of traffic, and he ended up third on the day. But it was, you take nothing away from him. I mean, he could have won that just as easy. It was hard to make the switch from following a teammate to going alone. See, there you go. And I found myself too far forward too early. Then I was trying to drift back, but it was a bit late to drift back. Then came at speed, and it was a complete mess. I tried to limit my losses. I did best I could get to get the result. A big part of sprinting is bumping shoulders, rubbing shoulders. I have to see it. I really don't know what happened in the sprints. When Polsterberger attacked, my two teammates went, and I let the wheel go. There you go. When I had a gap, they're two big engines, and I was shouting on the radar to go, because the chances of catching them in that final was difficult. Polsterberger attacked, didn't affect us all. He was doing anyway. That's not really much. I don't know that was. He told them to go, which is perfectly fine, and they did so. But whatever. Roglic, he said, when you're wearing the yellow jersey, you cannot afford to sleep or to make any mistakes. It's all about focusing for every kilometer. The stage was easier than yesterday, but on these roads with a crash at the end, it was hard. But the team did, again, a great job. Wout van Aert is exceptional. And so everyone on Jumbo who do their part, it's why we have the jersey. He was also saying that if you start to think or worry too much about a lot of things, I don't worry too much. And the thing is, we all need to focus on our jobs every day. And we are doing, and let's keep doing that. That's a quote from Flow Bikes, and I'm giving them credit in case they come after me for that as well. He also said that sprinters are crazy, and he's completely true on that, especially Sagan. I mean, once again, maybe it was the selfie stick that maybe, it reminds you that Groenewegen Jakobsen thing. Did Jakobsen need to hit that hole? Now, that one was a little different because Groenewegen was coming into it. But this one, Sagan doesn't need to go through. He's like, is he maybe making himself a little safer by creating a little room, bumping on the left, making sure he doesn't go into the barrier? Exactly right. But that's still not necessary. And so maybe you just don't take that spot. You don't take that hole that you decided to go through. For a Hangover director, Enrico Patsky, in the sprint, Sagan was in good position, but then was a little blocked. Okay. Then in the last meters, he saw a possibility to go on the barrier to try to win the stage, and he touched Van Aert, harder than he liked to do. In the end, he was relegated. It's far away from the perfect, but we have to accept that. Sagan, he said, today I had the speed, and in the sprint, I tried to go on the right side. I passed the other rider easily. Not really, man. You were doing the same to him. And then I got really narrow. Didn't get narrow. Wout didn't move. I had to move to avoid the barriers, and as a result, I got relegated. This cost me a lot of points, but I still have not abandoned the fight for the green jersey. Yeah, so Bennett, with that, basically moves him into second then on the stage, gets a lot of points. We don't care what Polsterberger necessarily was saying about that. Anyway, that was interesting on the finishing line quotes there. Also interesting how Sagan, I think he gets away with a lot. And look, this is what they really have to do. If they want to start enforcing, and if you look at the sprint as well, though, who else was moving around was Caleb. He made a hard move to his left. There was just no one there. I don't know that he knew that no one was there, but he makes a hard move to his left to get around Bennett and jumps for it. And he's good though, because on the sprint and the finish, he was fine. All right, let's talk about Team GC. So previously, you looked at if you want to know who leads the Team GC, because that's a really important part of the tour. That is the team that's leading that wears the yellow helmet. And so previously you've seen EF Education First. They've been wearing the helmets because they're the highest on Team GC. Team GC is taken from the first three riders across the line each day. So you're consistently getting three good riders up there. Could be three different ones, doesn't matter, but three of them, then you are the Team GC leader. Now, one team that seems to win this in all the different tours is Movistar. Last year, they've had Landa. He's with Bahrain Marina. Nairo Quintana, he's with Arkea Samsic. Then they've got obviously Valverde, who seems to be on the retirement age of things, and he's just losing it a little bit. Soler, Enric Mas, they've got Carapaz was there with them last year. So obviously they had a good full contingent for all the stages. Well, Carapaz isn't there anymore. He's with Ineos. But I noticed today that they have moved back into the Team GC lead, which is a little odd. And I know that how they calculate it. And I think EF might actually take it back. But EF had Iran, and then Carthy was up there a bunch. Nelson Palace was finishing high 2 different times. Higuita and Dan Martin. But they've suffered a little bit, some of those guys. But who hasn't suffered is Iran. He's still looking well. So now you look at the Team GC battle, and they're leading it by 5 minutes, which, by the way, that 5 minutes can deteriorate in a day. It's a little bit because, once again, it's the top 3 riders. 10th on. So here's what you have for. Took a breakdown of Movistar for the race here. They have 1 rider on GC in 10th place. No, they've had 1 10th place finish and 1 top 5. Okay, their top GC rider is Enrique Mas and 12th at 2:02 back. Here's their top finishers for the different stages. Stage 1, 78th, stage 2, 14th, stage 3, 17th, stage 4, 18th, stage 5, 37th, stage 6, 16th, stage 7, Valverde got a 10th place. Stage 8, Carlos Verona got 3rd, but remember he was in a breakaway with Squines and Nons and Zakarin. So you really, I mean, he's not GC type of guy, but same thing. That's how EF was getting help with Palace. Stage 9, 13th by Valverde, and then 10 and 11, 16th and 35th for those. My point is they have they've looked really bad this tour compared to what we've seen them for before, and riders that have left, Nairo, Landa, Carapaz. Carapaz is obviously doing a lot of work, but Nairo and Landa especially are really looking exceptional to the last stage, last 2 mountain stages, especially Nairo and then Landa in that order. So that team's in the lead. I think it's kind of puts into perspective maybe the crappiness of that competition and what you have. And honestly, it's a little sad to see. I'm enjoying them and kind of their downfall. If you watch their Movistar thing on Netflix, fascinating by the way, very good show. Covering them last year, going through the different tours, you get a little sense that you're like, I'm fine with Carapaz leaving. They seem to have screwed him out. Now he didn't seem to do everything the best. I think he was racing when he wasn't supposed to. He got in a wreck. I think he was even wearing an Ineos kit before he had signed with them. Some bad stuff going on there, but they threw a ton of money at Carapaz, so that's what they got. But I don't think they necessarily treat him right, and they just hold on for dear life to Valverde and everything he wants and does. So that's what they get. They end the Team GC. They're wearing the yellow helmets. We'll see how long that lasts. On the thought of Nairo and some of those guys, there's evidently national alliances taking place there. The Colombians versus the Slovenians. The Colombians are saying that they are looking to have an alliance to take down the Slovenians, which would be Pogačar and Roglic. One, it's kind of lame. I remember there's Spanish Armada. They used to call them. This was back in the early 2000s. Wanted to take down Lance, and then Lance was just buying him up. Herrera and some of these other guys, just bringing him to his team. So it kind of all went for naught. But it's not only lame, I think it outright it gets the rules. So I'll have to look up if there's a UCI rule on that, but I don't believe it's necessarily the most ethical thing in the sense. Miguel Angel Lopez and Nairo Quintana, they proposed the Colombians at the Tour de France form a national alliance to try and keep the yellow jersey on South American shoulders for yet another year and team up against the Slovenian threat to their title. Now, do you think Ineos, even though they have a bunch of South Americans on there, that they're really going to be going in for this? It doesn't sound like something that they would do. And also, I don't think that Pogačar and Roglic are really, doesn't look like they're racing with and for each other. One tried to take the other out at the top of a climb the other day. Huh? What do you think of that? We all ride for different teams. We all have different interests. Maybe there could be a collaboration on the road, Lopez says. This all seems to be pushed by Lopez. And then it was interesting. Nairo's like, yeah, he's kind of, I'm kind of in for that. Well, he's got a kind of a weak team. So maybe that's the reason why. Although Bernal, this is what Bernal says, especially in reference to an alliance and that of an alliance with Nairo. He goes, how strange that Nairo talks about alliances. When I have attacked many times and I've gone with him, I have asked for him for the change, and he does not happen to help me, Bernal said. It catches my attention. A little bit of maybe translation there. Basically, it says he's a punk and he won't work with me. Why am I going to help work with him? And plus, I think these are guys more like Nairo, Lopez. I mean, Lopez has a decent team, though. these guys aren't getting help enough. Get your teammates out there. So you're all going to collaborate. And by the way, there's no comment there from Iran. I think Iran's just kind of a come along, go along kind of guy, and he'll do whatever if it's going to benefit him. And that's really what it is. You think you're going to put it down as a Colombian, try to do an attack if you're Lopez to benefit Nairo. I don't know if that's going to happen. But it'll be interesting to see. There's been talks of these kind of things before, and whether there are other teams doing that. And sometimes, French teams collaborating together. I don't know if you're going to get Bardet and Martin doing this. I don't know. How about some things that make you go, Wow. Mike Woods of VF Education First. He was dissed for the Tour de France this year. He signed for Israel Startup Nation to help Chris Froome next year. That's kind of the whole deal. That team has been bulking themselves up. Also, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I don't know if he's Norwegian, Denmark, Danish, something like that, but a young guy that had been with Lotto Soudal last year. He signed with Israel Startup Nation. They got another sprinter. They're looking like they're really consolidating. So one of the things they do, they bring in Mike Woods, who's, had a top 3 there in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's had a top 3 in the World Championships when old man Valverde won. Dude can climb. He won the virtual Mont Ventoux stage over the COVID stuff this year on Strava. So, he can really on Strava on whatever you call it when you do it do it online. Zwift. There you go. So Mike Woods, and I think he was not selected for the Tour de France team this year for EF Education First, specifically because he decided to leave the team. And Jonathan Vaughters, you read his book, he's really big into people that are loyal. I mean, he made a big deal about Iran. Iran could have gone away when that EF and Garmin were kind of having a problem there and didn't have a sponsor. And Iran said, no, I'm staying with him. So he dedicated part of his book and really made a big deal. So maybe he feels like, hey, he reached out, he took Woods, and he didn't end up staying with him. So he's got a little bit of because all indications are that Woods should have been on the tour team. And I'm saying, why is, I like TJ, but why is TJ Van Garderen on the tour team and not Mike Woods? That seems really odd. And it almost sounds like TJ was going to be on the tour team, and then Nelson Powless took Woods' place. Okay, but you also look at Ineos, and they were willing to have 2 former winners. Matter of fact, last year's second place winner not even take the start, and Geraint Thomas. The year before, Chris Froome, he didn't take the start either because they really weren't ready for the tour. Now Chris had left, and maybe you're saying, hey, it's the same Israel Startup Nation thing. You're going away. I don't think so. I just think both those guys were just not in a good enough position to actually be selected, and they did a harsh business decision. Both of them actually are saying now, yeah, that's the case. So I think you should have put Mike Woods in there, definitely get his Tour de France shot, and he's getting a little older, and it's kind of a bummer. So he goes out today and he wins a stage in Trinidad Attico, and pretty convincing. I guess there was like 10+% stage going up to the finish. He did it. He said he'd check this out, and he did a hard kick and ends up winning the stage. And you look at who's all coming out there for the finish. Now it'll be interesting to see how this Trinidad Attico goes on with the climbing, but he beats Rafael Micah, Wilco Kelderman, Patrick Conrad of Bora, Alexander Vlasov, who we've seen, do well in a few stage races, and Lombardia, Sergio Henao, Tano Kangert, that's his teammate, Fastio Masnada, Fulsang, Thomas, Yates, Vanderpool, pretty solid. Let's take a look. Louis Menchie's down here, Vincenzo Nibali. Let's just keep scrolling down and see if we get to a Chris Froome, because I believe he's at Torreno, and I'm still pulling down 55 people, 65. Brent Bookwalder, solid. Mike Tunison, 76. These are non-climbers now. I don't see Michael Matthews. Maybe I missed him, but I did not see a Chris Froome in the mix. So pretty sure. Oh, there you go. 112. He lost 18 minutes on the day. 112. I wonder how we would have done on the tour. Yeesh. Anyway, that's just kind of my thought about Mike Woods. I think he should have had a shot at the tour this year, and he did not. Upcoming stages. So tomorrow we have 218 kilometers rolling and climbs, but not a GC day. Once again, this is before the big mountains on Friday, stage 13. So stage 12 going to Chavigny to Seran. I would say, look, everyone's going to be keyed up because Friday looks like a big bad day. It's got a time bonus on the last Cat 2 climb, but it's a Cat 1, Cat 3, a Cat 2, a Cat 3, a Cat 3, a Cat 2, and a Cat 1. And that's going to hurt them mightily. So it's kind of like the day before time trial. It'll be interesting to see if there's any wind or what happens with the GC, or if it comes down to sprinters. The brakes have really kind of been peeled in lately. You see that early on, some riders getting up the road. And you always see that in the Tour, but lately it's been maybe a little bit mellow. And I don't know if that is owed to a super, super hard start that everyone's kind of backed off on. So who knows? Stage 13, like I said, of Friday, 191 kilometers. Stage 14, 197 kilometers. A bunch of climbing then, but not as bad as stage 13 on the Friday. And then Sunday, a Cat 1, a Cat 1, and an HC with a rest day coming up after that. So look, loading up for the weekends. Tour at least does things right. They have television. They know about how these things work. And what your best bet is to do is what? It's to bring in the crowds and to make sure that they are fully engaged and on the weekend. And that's what we usually have. Saturday, Sunday, pretty good. But there's starting Friday, a little peak there, little change. And Saturday, who knows? Maybe Saturday is going to be a dangerous day as well. How about the ride of the day or the week? I would have given it to, and this is tough. I mean, every day in today's kind of, maybe I would have given it to Gregor Mollberger if he had been able to finish the day. It looked like he was pretty sick. I mean, when you're wearing a full-on like Castelli jacket, I don't know what it was, but a jacket, and everyone else is like sweating like crazy, and you're just pushing like 60 RPMs on the back of the field. Looks like you're having a tough time. You're probably pretty sick. Not COVID, evidently. No updates on that. I guess on the second rest day, they're going to have a bunch more testing. So we'll see about that. We also reported yesterday, Christian Prudhomme had been, whatever, but he was not in those bubbles. And he had decided initially to not even be really connected at all with any riders. He wanted to be separated from them because he was, shaking hands with dignitaries and doing all those little things he does. So Christian Prudhomme out of the Tour, pretty sad. Not really. So who's my ride of the day? I got to go with Caleb, I guess, on that one. And maybe Wout. Roglic was talking about Wout. And he said, hey, we talk about it in the morning. Things work out. We give him the go-ahead to take on the sprint. But he goes, even then, he was leading me up through inside 2K, 2K, leading me and routing me and making sure I was in position before he decides to go for this. Dude is awesome. And is there anything he can't do? I mean, he can time trial. We know that. He can sprint. We know that. And he almost won today. I mean, hadn't been for Sagan and his SoCal shoulder bumping sprint techniques, maybe Wout gets that win. Maybe Wout needs to learn how to rough and tumble himself a little bit as well. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, everybody, thank you once again. Episode 194, the Between Two Wheels podcast. What I would suggest is I would try to put up times when we're going here on Facebook. Check out our Facebook page, our YouTube thing, spread this show around, get some more people in here, people. I would appreciate it as well. Once again, Tyler Janke, Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 194 in the books. Take care. Keep it safe.